Warm greetings. Welcome to my presentation entitled Does Infertility Exist in Mother Nature? In other words, conception obstruction in light of biological new medicine, psychogenetics, and wave genetics. Why does this presentation consider aspects of new medicine? Because I found it important to start from what is available here and now, from your current life situation, being aware of and recognizing obstacles present in your life to be able to identify the current emotional obstructions, stress situations, challenges, which are the reasons why the conception of your baby, your future fetus, has not happened yet. Why do I use this phrase? I use it because, as a new medicine consultant and lecturer, being aware of the science of new medicine, I understand that infertility does not exist in Mother Nature. Mother Nature has programmed us perfectly. You as a woman, as a prospective or present mother, as a goddess. In such quality, biologically, physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, you have every opportunity to become a perfect mother and conceive. Therefore, from now on, in this presentation, I will avoid using the term infertility and will talk about conception obstruction and the obstacles of conception. The presentation is structured such that first I will talk about programs regarding losing biological balance, meaning that I will introduce the stress situations and programs that possess an emotionally traumatic background from a new medicine approach, which potentially caused or currently cause your biological body or mental spirit to fall into a state of imbalance.
Egyensúlytalansági helyzet felé billenthették ki eddig, vagy billentik ki jelen pillanatban.
Furthermore, what factors, life situations, changes that you decide to change or choose because you become aware of them and recognize their importance will help restore the balance of your health entirely. These are biological legalities. The presentation is based on these. These are the cornerstones of the theory. Hence, the discoveries of new medicine serve as the cornerstones of this lecture, and I'm planning not to mention biological ideologies in a detailed way. I want you to know that I think it's important for you to obtain the 5 biological natural rules for yourself. First, because they are extremely important in your everyday life. Second, because this way, the deep expertise I would like to share with you during this presentation will make perfect sense. The presentation, entitled Conception Obstruction, includes dense professional content. Therefore, I think it would be beneficial if you could take notes besides actively listening. Moreover, I hope that in light of this knowledge, you will be able to examine and analyze your own stress and emotional situations, life path, family tree, and make changes in your everyday life. Once again, the lecture is based on the discoveries of new medicine. It originates from biological factors. And then, following these programs, I will talk about psychic mechanisms of action regarding psychology and psychogenetics, which also recognized that not only in the here and now, the present, but also in the previous generations, your ancestors, generational life reflections, what programs can obstruct and hinder conception. And finally, as the concluding thought of the presentation, I will explain you the reasons why I believe that receiving new information, knowing how quantum genetics works, understanding the development of your fetus, and realizing how life is created, considering basic genetics, are important from the aspect of wave genetics. Furthermore, what are the emotional situations that you need to pay special attention as a current or prospective mother to allow your child, fetus, newborn to grow and develop in a perfect health balance by you, in you? So, I'm beginning the presentation with the aspect of new medicine. I will enlist for you the biological programs that potentially obstruct or hinder conception. The first such program is the program of the relapsing endometrium. Regarding new medicine, we say that the relapsing endometrium is a separate program because for Mother Nature, each biological program is a logical, causal, clear operational unit providing an informational system. When the endometrium is affected, and this is the first biological aspect that must be examined when you would like to conceive, you would like your baby to be conceived. Therefore, the first biological point that must be considered is the program series of the endometrium. When someone falls back to the same emotional experience, stress situation that is related to gender natures and gender characteristics that are true considering the following factors, I will give some examples in a few seconds, then the endometrium can become affected. The endometrium has a special role in conception because this is our system, among others, that accepts your fetus, expected baby. It becomes embedded and the endometrium embraces it. Therefore, the programs that belong to this system are all developed between a woman and a man. So each situation that you as a woman experience with a man, for example, a stress situation or an emotional trauma that you considered negative, unfair, or dishonest. I will use phrases to help you understand that in their analogies, meaning that you not necessarily have to experience the situation in these exact words. I use these words so that you yourself will be able to categorize these programs, for example, the program of the endometrium, to decide whether you feel yourself affected or not, and to have a benchmark or point to compare your own situation to. It is not necessarily the sameness of the words or the story that matter and you must identify, but I would like to encourage you to become able to examine the analogy of the received information and discover similarities, correlations in your own life. Thus far, we have discussed that behind the effectiveness of the endometrium, you as a woman experience a negative, unfair, or dishonest situation induced by a man, your significant other, neighbor, or father, for example, an aggressive behavior that is directed towards you, But negative comments and bullying also belong to these factors. Or else, it hurts your feelings what he's saying, or you would prefer if he rephrased something that he is conveying. So consider these programs from different aspects and ask yourself, what kind of relationship is mine? Is everything the way I want it to be? Would I prefer something else? What are these things? What would I prefer? How should my partner express his thoughts to me such that it will satisfy me? These are questions worth answering. It is important to consider the relationship and your significant other first, and then the other male characters in your life, those who surround you. And this approach is relevant to the entire presentation. For example, your father, grandfather, neighbor, or friend. This is something you yourself must determine because it is personal. Still considering the endometrium, when a program is running in which someone is talking to you with a rude tone at home, in your own nest or environment, that program falls to this category as well. It hurts your feelings what the male character is saying. You would like to shape the relationship differently. You imagined something else. On top of this, it is also worth exploring regarding the endometrium. This thought is not necessarily connected to your current situation, but from the moment of conception until the present, as well as in the generation of your ancestors. Therefore, the experiences of previous generations and the family tree are also worth analyzing. Your relatives and parents can provide great help for you in this question. However, if there is some secrecy and concealing involved, you can still rely on your intuitive feelings, beliefs, based on your heart, soul, and spirit, and resolve the circumstances of the program series that were present in the emotional conflicts of the previous generations that are yet undiscovered or were not appropriately, intelligently resolved. Because in this case, these situations have an impact on your life, since these are reflected on our lives, and we can experience the same drama again and again, originating from the life of one of our ancestors. I will elaborate on this thought later, in the light of psychogenetics. Here, I'm not talking about experiencing the exact same situation, but a conflict pattern, an information sameness. For example, someone experienced an unpleasant relationship and consequently the individual developed a bodily change, not necessarily affecting the endometrium, but the conflict itself, the emotional event, drama and stress situation formulated in that relationship, is the factor that is really similar to the situation you today experience in your own relationship as an emotional sequence of events. These are the patterns we are looking for in general. In this research program, sexual conflicts are worth to be explored regarding the endometrium. These include, for example, sexual conflicts in your life or in your ancestors' lives that could involve loss, such as the death of a relative or child. Moreover, unresolved sexual conflicts regarding a child or a family member and sexually colored drama situations also belong to this category. For example, when there was an incorrect or erroneous belief system or program that the family is incapable of nesting for various reasons, for example, economic and emotional reasons, it doesn't matter what the motivation was. This program that the family is incapable of nesting will run through generations of the family. In this way, we can become affected regarding our endometrium. Moreover, the presence of moral and physical danger with a sexual background also belong to this category. Concealing sexual conflicts, this did not even happen approach, can automatically initiate the program for our perfectly programmed biological computer, also known as quantum computer, in biological aspects that results in a physical change in our body, which can have further consequences like an endometrial lesion. The endometrium must be at least 5 millimeters thick to be able to welcome the embryo, but 8 to 10 millimeters is the most ideal. Biologically, during the active period of the conflict, while you are in conflict or disagreement with someone, the drama situation is ongoing, the endometrium is growing. While during menstrual bleeding, when you feel relaxed and calm, your life enters the healing stage. This means that during menstrual cycles, the endometrium detaches and it is cleared away with menstrual bleeding. As a side note, around menopause, the developed glandular tissue can be removed with the help of fungi. This has been discovered by new medicine. This was the first biological program, the effectiveness of the endometrium that is potentially capable of obstructing conception. The second such biological program is the uterine tube occlusion. I am discussing this as the second program because it is closely related to and shows some similarities to the emotional experiences of endometrial lesion. The case of uterine tube occlusion is also a feminine factor, meaning that you as a woman can experience this conflict induced by a man. It originates from an unfair, dishonest experience of a female and male subject that you as a woman consider unfavorable, negative, or contradictory. These are fine-level experiences, and when I say unfair, dishonest, and filthy, those refer to a more serious level. I hope you feel that from my word choice. So, conflicts like the aforementioned ones are similar to that of the endometrial lesion. The difference is that in case of uterine tube occlusion, there is always an aspect regarding the development of a child. This means that there is some kind of sexual genital conflict factor regarding a child, or that is affecting the child in some aspects. For example, when you as a woman do not like the approach someone takes to the child. To better illustrate this, you do not like how someone is talking about the child, or how the individual takes care of them. This origin can range from even harsh physical actions or lighter levels, such as thinking and talking. The child can be affected by any internal or external person, or worrying in the ambience of your life, through whom you experience anxiety, tension, anger. It causes this kind of outrage. Child abuse falls into this category as well. This doesn't necessarily mean physical abuse only. It can be bullying or emotional and mental trauma caused by a fellow human being that you would prefer not to happen. Programs such as seeing a kid being bullied, the father-daughter indignation, or a sexual indignation due to abandonment also belong to this category. These factors do not necessarily happen in your life, perhaps in the previous generations instead. What kind of practical things belong to this group that you might have encountered? It often happens, based on my experience, that you as a woman do not like the way your neighbor treats your kid, the way he or she talks to the child, the way the individual raises his or her voice. Or else, you observe an event happening in the street, a sequence of events. Of course, we are trying to live a life without judgment and criticism. This is an important aspect in your and anyone's life, if you would like to be able to live a loving life. Together with this, it is likely that you will judge a situation, regardless of how much information you have about the incident. And, for example, you don't like how the child is dragged across the pedestrian crossing in the street. From this, you create an emotional conflict, a drama situation, which can have biological consequences. The situation I see most often, however, is that something happens within the family. Of course, what situations are the hardest to handle? The ones happening in the family or within a friend group. These are the most difficult to solve and place in the right order. The hardest things to handle are the ones the closest to us. My practical experience indicates that when a child is born within the family, or even considering a toddler, and you determine that one of your relatives, like your cousin, sibling, or anyone else in the family, does not treat the child right, the child doesn't get the things he or she would need in the right way, or doesn't get those factors at all, or maybe they do not think about him or her in the right way. They physically treat him or her differently, in a way that you do not agree with, or maybe differently regarding his or her emotional or mental health. And this bothers you because you are brooding on it. You cannot escape the hamster wheel, so that it keeps you in an emotional drama situation in your day-to-day, week, month life. The consequence of this situation can also be a biological bodily change, such as a uterine tube occlusion. Moreover, it is also important to discover and resolve conflicts. We consider sexually colored conflicts in this case as well, regarding sexual impurity. So, some kind of pollution, which can even be physical, but most often I observe one with an emotional background that causes mental imbalance. For example, sexually colored conflicts when someone's reputation is damaged, or typically in practice disappears as, I say this in quotation marks, what will others think? When in the family, not necessarily in your life, maybe in the life of one of your ancestors, there was a secret lover, belongs to this category, for example. These are all sexual colored events that you do not deem fair or do not agree with because you think they are or were dishonest or immoral, but maybe it happened in such social, cultural situation that your relative couldn't avoid it, escape from it, or simply did not want to. Anything like that. These programs are worth examining and analyzing through your own life and in previous generations of the family tree as well. This is important because the moment you discover information like this, you become able to step off the hamster wheel, this vicious circle. As you enter this state of reassurance, you and your biological physical body immediately enter the stage of solutions and become able to re-enter the state of balance and heal itself. While you are in a conflict-active state, you are running in the hamster wheel during the stress situation. We are talking about cylindrical epithelium, mucous membrane thickening regarding the uterine tube. Whereas after the solution stage, in the healing regeneration state, an edema might develop, which can cause uterine tube occlusion. Furthermore, the uterine tube, considering that it is essentially a smooth muscle tube, can contract or relax itself in a few moments. When this sequence of actions is recorded because, for example, you have already gone through a protocol to determine why the baby you are planning to have has not arrived yet, you go through this protocol and receive a static image that shows that the uterine tube is currently closed. This means nothing more than that it was closed at that exact moment. Maybe in the next day or hour, I do not want to elaborate on time periods, it will relax. The smooth muscle tube is capable of relaxation just as contraction to provide interoperability. In this case, it's worth asking yourself, what am I stressing about? What causes these cramps? Since we are considering a smooth muscle, this is a convulsive contraction. What factors cause these cramps? What barriers originating from my lifestyle cause this situation, from the approach we are taking? Biological, emotional, mental aspects? This is the second factor that is capable of obstructing conception from biological aspects. The third program, according to new medicine, is the pituitary program, in which the pituitary gland becomes affected. In new medicine, we say that the pituitary gland can act as a biological birth control. It stops conception. I will explain the reasons why this happens in a few seconds, and I will also elaborate on its emotional background. Basically, two programs are related to the pituitary gland. The first one is when you, as a woman, feel that some external circumstances are not appropriate, not good enough for you. The other program is the I am too small program that involves circumstances in which you feel too small. Let's consider the first one. This involves situations when you as a woman experience that some external circumstances are inappropriate from an emotional aspect. What kind of situations belong to this group? For example, when you feel that you are not able to take care of your family or to support them the way you want to. Or else, when you feel that your husband is unable to support the family the way you want him to. This is also enough to associate these factors, the lack of support, to something else and experience that situation through those circumstances. I am not only talking about financial and material support, but also emotional circumstances, when you need some kind of emotions, feelings to experience being supported, to experience that on the one hand you are supported, and on the other hand that you as a woman, as a mother, a prospective mother, can provide support to your future family. All of these belong to this program. When you experience an emotional conflict, for example, when you raise the question, what if I will not be able to financially support the education of my child? This is not restricted to time. Maybe you already have a child and expecting the next. One of them already goes to school. You are able to support him or her along his or her life, but you start to wonder what will happen to the second, third, fourth child. Situations like these can initiate a biological obstruction in the pituitary program. The program of being counted is also related to the pituitary gland. This involves situations when you feel that you are on thin ice in your life regarding your financial situation, life management, and many other aspects. This can also be a time program in relation to time. The thyroid gland can also become affected, but this is not related to our current topic since we are focusing on the pituitary gland this time. When the feeling of being counted is running, you experience anxiety and tension. In this case, we are biologically capable of initiating a pituitary program in our body. Or else, what is important, and thus I would like to emphasize, because it often occurs during my practical experience, is when a woman is in debt. Perhaps the husband is also involved. You take out a loan, which is completely fine, but until you believe that it is economically beneficial, you can handle it, you do not need to worry or stress about it. This is totally fine, and these situations can be handled well within high financial intelligence. However, if the situation is surrounded with a lower quality or a smaller extent of financial intelligence, and thus it involves stress and anxiety, or if certain life circumstances force you to enter this program and become indebted, which puts a pressure on you. Or it is also enough if your partner is under pressure. Maybe he's saying that, oh honey, everything is fine, things are under control, but in fact, he's frustrated and worried about the situation. Then this information can leave a mark on your own pituitary program. Therefore, situations like these are also worth considering and analyzing. It is important to discuss these with your partner. When you can avoid to owing money to someone or taking out a loan which would cause emotional and mental stress, so can you exit the pituitary program. To conclude, one should aim to avoid stressing over becoming indebted or owing money to someone. Why? Because in these cases, Mother Nature increases the biological prolactin levels in your body, which is a biologically perfect and clear response. Why would Mother Nature do this? Why was this biological computer programmed in a way to respond with increased prolactin levels to such emotional experiences? What does prolactin do? Prolactin, among others, induces lactation. Breast milk nourishes the newborn, and thus it determines whether the child is well or malnourished. It plays the role of silencing, cleansing, nourishing. Therefore, the logical and intelligent response of Mother Nature when you have problems or you are stressing about a barrier in your life, feeling that you are not able to take care and nourish your family or child because you are in debt, you are counted, is increasing prolactin levels to produce enough breast milk with which you can nourish your family. This is a reasonable response. Moreover, the elevated prolactin levels, referring back to conflicts involving the hypophysis system, serve as a biological birth control. The increased prolactin levels obstruct conception. What should you do? You should try to escape these emotional burdens, drama situations, and try to find an appropriate solution. Then the prolactin levels can regain their balance. I want you to know that the hypophysis system is like a bandmaster. It is the conductor of your entire hormonal system. It is the main control unit that controls the instructions. When it is affected, then every system below it that also play an important role in our hormonal system below become affected as well. The band works based on the instructions of the bandmaster. Therefore, I believe that it is important to see things clearly regarding the hypophysis system. The two factors I mentioned before regarding the hypophysis are first, when you feel that the external circumstances are inadequate, and second is the I am too small program. This refers to the situation when you as a woman feel that you are not enough for something. They made me believe that I have already believed that I am not able to do this and that and those things because I am too weak and small. Oh, only someone else can do that for me. Only someone else can solve that. When programs like this run and you believe them or you are being influenced, then the hypothesis becomes effective. Therefore, it is important to avoid these and find life situations in which you feel great, emotionally developed, and you can handle in a way and quality with which you are satisfied and allows your life to achieve progress. You need to find these. Ovulation and the quality of the follicle is affected by both prolactin and insulin levels. I would like you to also know that insulin affects androgen levels as well. This means that one role of the female sex hormones is preparing the body for pregnancy and then maintaining it. The two most important female sex hormones are the progesterone and estrogen. Estrogen is responsible for ovulation, while progesterone helps preparing the body for pregnancy and maintaining it. This means that low progesterone levels are capable of hindering ovulation. The follicle, at certain stages of development, does not convert testosterone to the required estrogen, and thus the estrogen levels will not be favorable. In this way, supporting the oocyte will be relegated to the background. This is the reason why getting pregnant becomes difficult or results in miscarriage in the early stages. I want you to know that from a new medicine approach, from biological knowledge, we recognized that there is a conflict originating from the fear of disgust, in the case of insulin, the emotional background of which we are interested in finding. Therefore, it is important to pay attention to this aspect. In practice, this means that you, as a woman, experience something that you are disgusted of, or it is just not appealing or tasteful. For example, being disgusted of someone, something, or a certain thing. This is this, I say it in quotation marks, I hate it, I'm sick of that, anything but that attitude. Moreover, it creates fear, anxiety in you, because you are worrying about the consequences. This is the key to the whole picture. It stimulates you to express that you do not like something, but you are more afraid of expressing this dislike to your partner, relatives, society, etc., and its consequences, that of the actual factor that stimulates you to express your feelings in an open and fair communication setting to solve this problem. So it makes you anxious, you start to worry about the consequences. In this case, fear is the activating ingredient of conflict intensity. Secondly, resistance, opposition, and remonstrance conflicts belong to the insulin program. When you feel that you are constantly in a life situation in which, for example, you always must protect yourself, you are resisting or fighting with someone or something. This can be a personal relationship, partnership, or any kind of social relationship, economic or political aspect, anything. This depends on you. This is totally personal. What events happen in your life that you dislike, want to change, or would prefer to happen differently? You constantly need to defend yourself. You must resist and fight with someone over something. I do not want this or that to happen. I wish things were different because my life is not complete without those things. I do not want that, but I am worried, afraid of the consequences of expressing my dislike or opposing point of view. This is the key to this program. In other words, the fear, anxiety, the barrier and the obstruction are greater, being more worried about the consequences than being able to convey your opposing opinion appropriately. This hinders and obstructs you, as well as serves as a communicational barrier which causes this obstacle or stress factor in your life situation or sequence of events in your life. In this case, fear can increase the intensity of the conflict as well. Moreover, regarding the hypothesis program, I would like to explain to you that it is also worth to examine and analyze the presence of fear of whether you will become a good mother or not in your life and family history, family tree. For example, thoughts like, I will not be able to take care of my newborn baby. Of course, there is a generational pattern, luckily or unluckily, it doesn't matter, according to which we are affected by the marks of the First and the Second World War. In these periods, it was common that in both time and space, supporting the family was difficult. Children were born back then. Mothers were giving birth while experiencing series of mental and emotional trauma regarding nourishing, fostering, taking care of the child. Therefore, we can become affected in these cases as well through our ancestors and previous generations because they didn't give appropriate answers to these circumstances, or an answer was not even given, or they experienced a trauma which was concealed and kept secret. These connections are worth discovering in order to improve your life quality and allow you to process these events. Once again, this category involves thoughts such as, I will not be a good mother. How will I be able to take care of my child? Will I be able to nourish and protect him or her the way I would like to? These situations must be analyzed. Or else, emotional conflicts in which you worry about not being a good mother despite your efforts and wishes. For example, my significant other or family is preaching or judging you regarding something. These situations belong to this category as well. Furthermore, feelings like, I need to be protected, I am not appreciated, I'm not appreciated the way I wish to be, I do not receive the love and care I would like to. The flows of these programs to you also belong to this group. So, feeling need for protection, more kindness, which can be achieved by really simple everyday acts such as giving more hugs, showing recognition, belong to this category. Also, worrying about your own or your child's safety. Maybe it's a generational conflict involving the memory of a child who had to take care of him or herself or had to take care of others as well, for example his or her siblings, which was a role forced on him or her, whereas he or she was a child, so taking care of them was not his or her responsibility. These situations also belong here. While he or she was a child, he or she had to take care of someone else. Moreover, when you would like to be a good mother and not a lover, when a program of being worried or anxious is running that you will not be able to be both simultaneously. What will happen? I need to persist. My partner needs it. It is a natural desire to be a lover and a mother as well. And you create an anxiety program from this situation, and it becomes a recurring issue with which you can act on the biologism. It is also worth analyzing whether there was a man who had a lover on the family line. He was involved in seeking pleasure from another aspect outside the family. These programs also belong to this group. You need to recognize these factors and resolve them in your life, consciously, on a daily level. Convert them into a plot or sequence of actions. What does it mean? This means that you can and have the ability to, and I'm sure you do, give an emotionally intelligent answer to this situation and past conflicts, and based on this emotionally intelligent answer, you can take actions from now on in your everyday life. Then you have become able to escape these conflict circles, vicious circles, or hamster wheels. This was the third program from a biological approach regarding conception obstruction. The fourth program that belongs here is the program of the ovary. The ovary essentially belongs to female self-esteem breakdown. So, the first emotional conflict that is worth examining regarding the ovarian affectedness is always the female self-esteem breakdown, capacity decline, hindrance in female quality. When you, as a woman, feel that you are a loser or feel undervalued, or else you do not feel that you are a valuable woman. Primarily, conflicts in your partnership belong to this group because women usually experience it in this way, that something is not good enough. You are not good enough at something. Your significant other or your environment, your father, grandfather, boss, employee, friend, or someone else, makes you believe that you as a woman are not good at something. This initiates a feeling of being held back in you, which generates this distinct biological program. When someone feels that or experiences a situation such that he or she is not acknowledged enough, love belongs here as well. Not being loved enough or not being loved or acknowledged in such elevated quality you wish to be and you are able to imagine your life in. Then this program can become dominant as well. Therefore, it's worth examining whether there is such a person or character in your life. First, if there's such an emotion, and if yes, which character in your life made you believe this? Who maintains this feeling? Is it you or maybe someone else? Is there something regarding your partnership in the background? For example, when you feel alone, you need more attention. You want your partner to pay more attention to you and take care of you. These situations also belong here. In other words, when you experience the lack of something in your femininity or quality as a woman which affects your self-esteem, these things belong to this group. The other point of conflict that initiates the biological program of the ovary are the experiences when you lose one of your loved ones. The term loved ones can of course refer to a human being, your partner, or a beloved pet, any living creature. Therefore, when you experience a loss conflict in which you lose a beloved relative who was really close to you, then the ovary can become affected. when this program ends, for example, mourning takes place, you calm down and your mental balance is restored, then your body can regenerate and the balance of your health becomes restored as well.
Képes és tudja regenerálni, és helyreáll az egészséged egyensúlya is. A ciszták vonatkozásában, mint a petefész.
Regarding cysts, which is a characteristic sign of affectedness of the ovaries, I would also like to share some information with you. Even during normal follicular maturation, cysts are formed in the ovary. Basically, cysts are encapsulated liquid-containing cavities, which is an entirely normal state. There are different types of cysts. One of them is when the cyst is rich in cell proliferation and more tissue types are found to be present. The second one is when the cyst contains blood and debris. These are the so-called chocolate cysts, given that the blood within the cyst thickens, becomes brown, and thus displays a similar color. The third type is when the cyst is essentially an encapsulated cavity that contains some liquid. These are the simple cysts. A mature follicle is usually 20-25 millimeters large when ovulation happens. When a simple cyst outgrows and it cracks, it can be accompanied by bleeding. This is part of the natural process. In the aspects of new medicine, a polycystic ovary is formed, for example, when the woman experiences a serious loss conflict several times. For example, as I mentioned before, she loses a loved one who was really close to her. That may be a person, a pet, or anyone else. Or else, in her partnership, social relationships, connections, femininity, female character, she feels undervalued and underestimated. So, these femininity, self-esteem breakdown programs belong to this category. You feel yourself depreciated, feel that your capacity has decreased because you believed that you are worthless in some aspects or less worthy. You didn't receive, experience a value-based support you experienced or wanted to. Or regarding some certain things, you feel that you are less valuable. Moreover, I would like to emphasize this again, when others make you believe that you are not valuable. In these cases, the influence and pressure exerted from the environment should also be examined. Who is the person in your life from whom you would like to receive more appreciation, you would like to receive more support, you would expect a different way of operation of love and its flow? We are women. You are a prospective mother, so you would expect encouragement through the loving flow of your loving femininity and future motherhood. Who is this person? Who are they? In which things in your life would you like to feel more valuable? The female self-esteem breakdown can also be caused by the failure of trying to start a family. Therefore, this is also worth paying attention to. The distinct program of the ovary, when it is in a conflict-active state, in other words, while the emotional drama lasts and you are stuck in it, so there is a conflict activity. Then there is a necrotic atrophy in the ovary that you, as a woman, do not really feel or notice. However, what you will notice is the next state when you realize the symptoms through pain spasms. These are usually diagnosed in the post-solution stage when you enter the phase of healing. You calm down, the conflict is over, your body starts to regenerate, then you start to experience this set of symptoms. I want you to know that the form of the generated cysts can be various. Determining the exact shape of the cyst requires thorough investigation because they are diverse. Perhaps providing its size in cubic centimeters could serve as an adequate way in the future. In case the emotional conflict has been resolved, then these cysts are able to become supplemental connective tissue over 9 months, which is not accidentally identical to the length of pregnancy. We are talking about mesodermal connective tissue in case of the ovaries. Therefore, these cysts can become mesodermal connective tissue. With their own vascular network, they are capable of detaching from their environment because they were pinned to the surroundings before. In case a formation like this is too large, larger than 9 centimeters, then it is still worth waiting out this 9-month period because, as I mentioned earlier, the cyst can attach to its environment and serve itself from that environment with blood and nutrients. Then, when its own vascular network is formed, it is capable of detaching from its environment, and it is possible to remove the cyst surgically with the least possible amount of complications. Moreover, I would like to emphasize that you should always try to avoid the feeling of desolation, loneliness, and stagnation. The reason for this is that these feelings can lead to renal collective duct problems or programs which cause fluid retention in your body. Being alone, feeling that you are helpless with something, you feel alone, there is no one to help. Of course, some people are always there and offer to provide help, but in your heart and mind, you feel that you must solve this issue alone. You are alone, do not know what to do with this issue. These feelings should be avoided because they cause fluid retention in your body, which increases the edema in the cyst, and thus the danger of cracking and fission. Therefore, you should pay attention to avoid these feelings of loneliness, hopelessness, and isolation, the feelings of I need to solve the situation alone. And in this case, you can avoid developing more edema in the cyst. This was the 4th program in the aspects of biologism regarding conception obstruction. The 5th program that belonged to this group is the so-called genital possession zone conflicts. Why do we call these genital possession zone conflicts from the new medicine point of view? The reason for this is that women are primarily affected in their sexuality or gender-wise, while men are primarily affected regarding possessed things. This, regarding the cerebral cortex, the gray matter, means that as a right-handed woman, you primarily experience conflicts on the left side that involve some aspects of sexuality and gender norms. And secondarily, you experience the characteristically masculine possession conflicts. This is what the genital possession zone conflicts are about. I would like you to know that in case of genital possession zone conflicts, on both the left and right side, there are 5 relay centers. There are 10 centers combined in the brain. Depending on what aspect of emotional conflicts you can experience, I will give some examples shortly. Based on that, will a certain relay center become affected?
Ezeket a nem és birtokjellegű konfliktusokat
I deem knowing these gender and property-like conflicts especially important and want you to be aware to avoid their emotional backgrounds, because these 10 relay zones are the series of programs initiated by the biological computer forming the cortical functional imprint that can biologically lead to miscarriage. Therefore, I think this knowledge is crucial, because I think it is important that the conception of the baby happens in the balance of health, and to be able to keep him or her, wait for him or her, and start his or her loving existence and life in this balance. Now, let's consider what emotional conflicts belong to this group and thus should be avoided. I was talking about 5-5 relay zones. Therefore, I will portray 5 different conflict types for you. The first is the fright conflict that should be avoided. Fright conflict is anything that you are able to experience as freezing for a second, when there is a predator or abuser in your life. This may sound a bit too strong at first, but I will give some examples in a second. Fright conflict with the freezing nature is, for example, I will give some typical examples that occur in practice. When, within the family, you go to visit your mother, who lives her life with someone else, and her significant other acts suddenly, aggressively, arrogantly towards a certain thing, which not necessarily affects you as a person or your child, conceived child or mother. It might affect them, in which case you can become extremely affected emotionally, but it is simply enough that he makes such a statement or point that is scary or terrifying for you. And suddenly you freeze in this situation for a moment. Of course, as a pregnant woman, you do not necessarily have to arrange everything perfectly there at that moment, because that's not your job. Your job is to wait for the arrival of your baby in peace and love. So, in this situation, you become frozen of the predator in front of you that initiated an abuse program series in the biological computer, thinking that how arrogant and aggressive this individual is. This can happen even in the street or in the mall. There are several situations in practice when you experience this. Becoming frozen was developed by Mother Nature on purpose. I use this word so that you can achieve a better understanding. When you are swimming in the sea and see a shark coming towards you, even if you're not breathing, what do? Or you meet a bear in the forest, then what do? You become frozen, your system freezes for a second, and the predator or abuser goes away. This natural program is running in our computer as well. The predator or abuser is coming, an aggressive, arrogant, physically, emotionally, or verbally person or partner. You experience a situation like this, and your natural reaction to this is to become frozen, terrified. This is the first emotional experience that must be avoided under any circumstances. The second one, within the genital possession zone conflict. The first one was the fright conflict, right? So the second one is surprising natured. When you flinch, become surprised or amazed. Surprising natured, hysterically excited, scared, worrying conflicts. Well, we employ this pretty well as women, so I lovingly encourage and suggest you to be able to escape and stop doing these programs. When you are excitedly in fear, by fear I also mean being in an excited, anticipatory natured anxiety regarding your nest. The nest can be your house, your apartment, material objects within the nest, such as your car, but also your husband. If you feel that you own him, In case you already have children, then your kids. Maybe you feel that you found your nest at one of your friends. Then his or her environment also belongs here. This is really personal, only you know this. It's worth defining for yourself what belongs to, what is part of your nest. Where are its borders? Who belongs there? I think it's good for you if you can define these in your life, because in this way you will immediately know who and what circumstances in space and socially through whom or which you can experience a biological change as a result of being in a hysterical, excited, anxious state. So, this is why I deem this important. Define for yourself your own nest program. What does it mean for you? Therefore, the second thing that you should avoid are the surprising nature conflicts. The third factor that belongs here is the togetherness conflict. Togetherness involves every program, such as typical thoughts like, I'd like to marry him, I want to get married. For some people, this is not important because it's just a piece of paper, but for others, it may be important. If it is important for you because you tie the well-being of your life to this factor and it is an emotionally important story for you, then you must consult with your partner before thinking about having kids. So, in the togetherness conflict, there is a desire to get married, to belong to your partner, which either does not happen or, in the other case, you do not wish it to happen. Maybe your partner, significant one or fiancé, is trying to lead your relationship into a marriage, or another togetherness program, which can be an actual physical program and it is not desirable to you. This can also lead to togetherness conflict. What is a good solution? One potential solution is definitely discussing this situation with your partner. And so that he shares his thoughts as well. You should mutually express your point of views and conflict because through your partner, yourselves experience the same conflict and reaction. You do not necessarily experience it, of course. You are always in the middle of every situation, the middle of your biological and mental balance regarding your heart and soul as well. But of course, your partner is important for you. You resonate with his emotional experiences as well, and your future fetus acts the same way. He or she resonates with it as well. Therefore, the experiences of your partner are just as important. And this is why I encourage you to be able to communicate with each other in a high-quality manner, because these relay lesions in the cerebral cortex zone are preventable. This was the third program, the togetherness. The fourth group that belongs here are the dilemma conflicts. This is also a situation in which we as women can deeply get into, and thus the spectrum of physical things and emotional experiences involved is wide. To summarize and keep the scope of this phrase limited, dilemma conflicts involve conflicts in which you experience disagreement regarding decision-making, your identity, or your personality. Let me give you some examples. For example, when you feel that they look down on you, ignore you, do not see your value, I don't want to use worse expressions or bad language, or else thoughts like, I do not know who I am, what I am, or perhaps there is an oppressive person in your life presence. So, regarding decision-making, being uncertain or insecure, always relying on someone else. This is not necessarily good for the other person, and it doesn't take you forward in the best and most appropriate way. Every decision-making situation that involves hesitation and affects your femininity and motherhood it is important to be able to make a decision. Of course, it is natural and completely fine that you and your partner share your opinions. There is a mutual platform, and together, consistently, you adhere to this decision. You must be able to make a decision about certain things. Furthermore, you also need to know that you are the only one responsible for this decision. I slowed down a bit because I think this is an important point in your life that must be emphasized, and my practical knowledge shows that the lack of taking responsibility can lead humans to follow the wrong path in life. Forever and always, as a prospective mom, woman, goddess, you must take responsibility alone, and this is a completely natural phenomenon, and try to live this as your own natural miracle. Because besides this, the success, the emotional and mental success that you experience through this will only be yours. It will serve the quality of your ascension and external existence. I found this imperative, identity conflict. What is my identity? As a woman, what do you experience? Where do you belong? Who do you belong to? When a program is running in which you are worrying about what will happen when you become a mother, or in which factors are influencing your personality, but typically it involves the dilemma, who will I become as a mother? Will I be a good mother? Will I be able to manage the things I want to? Will I be able to be a woman and a lover simultaneously? This may be an utterly important program question. Therefore, again, you should discuss it with your partner well in advance. Let's face that. At first, while you are pregnant, or a few weeks after giving birth, it's not easy to play the role of a lover, and maybe you shouldn't do it either. This is a really personal decision. You need to make this decision in your life. Maybe at first you only need to experience the state and quality of being a mother. Or that is what you want to experience, then your environment must support you in this. If you wish to experience the role of a lover, then it must support you in that decision. What is important is not the nature of the decision, but to receive support in your chosen aspect, primarily through your partner, and secondarily, of course, through your family and your direct environment. Yes. You will become a mother, and as a mother, you will have a role. You will stay a woman. You will play a role as a woman, and you will remain a lover. You will play a role as a lover and stay a goddess, and play the role of a goddess in its quality. These roles change from time to time, and there are life stages in which it is hard to balance these roles out. Even then, this remains a really personal aspect. And above all, you should aim to sustain balance regarding your health and mental state in your personal experience. So, what can you do in this aspect for yourself? You need to consider these factors in advance, and you can find an appropriate answer together with yourself primarily, but also with your partner. When you are wondering whether the father, the prospective father of your child, will be a good father in certain aspects, how will you be together, what will happen to your relationship, etc. These all belong to this group. The fifth program within the genital possession zone conflict is the nest border conflict. I have already mentioned that I think it is important to determine what your nest means for you. Where are its borders? Within this nest border or property boundary conflict, I think it is important to emphasize for you that in this case of your own nest, the designation of your property boundary is essential because it allows you to know, in case of a conflict, what factors you would like to keep for yourself. Designating and keeping your own nest also belongs here. I will give you a practical example. When you feel that emotionally there is an intruder, interloper, trespasser in your life, this person is present, or maybe an oppressive individual. What does this typically mean? For example, your mother-in-law or your own mother or father comes to help you. Well, that's great at first. It sounds awesome that someone comes to help you with something, but what do they help you with? They, the environment that supposedly loves you are the most important for them, start to help you with things that you consider valuable in other qualities, in your own view. You or the border of your nest at this point might be offended or disturbed. For example, this can affect your body as well. If you don't like the way someone touches or hugs you, or the way someone rubs your belly when you are pregnant and it doesn't feel good, you need to be able to handle these situations and communicate your feelings in time. No, thank you, here's my border, this is mine, and please accept this. You can communicate this lovingly. Or in advance, while preparing for pregnancy. For example, it bothers you that someone intrudes into your kitchen, and out of kindness and love, the person washes the dishes, puts the dishes away, and you politely ask him or her. This is a banal example, but women can make a big deal from this. To put the coffee appurtenances here and here, but the individual figures that it would be better to store them somewhere else. Or do not cut the grass instead of you if you wish to do that. This is not help for you. I'm talking about banal, practical things. You feel it, you know it in your own life, where your borders are, and who those people are in your personal sphere, in your family, or at your workplace. Determine it yourself that you think intrudes into your life, which is undesirable and unpleasant for you. You need to be able to change the presence of these individuals and oppressive people and find solutions at good quality. I've been talking about the two sides, the genital conflicts affecting the two sides of the cerebral cortex, and enlisted the emotional experiences that might lead to miscarriage programs. Why do these lead to a potential miscarriage? The reason why this happens and why initiating this program is a logical response from Mother Nature is that if any of the 10 relay zones becomes affected by an emotional conflict, it influences our hormone levels, the hormone levels of women. In case the hormone levels on the side of the female decrease, then I'm saying this biologically and in quotation marks, we become transferred to the male side hormonally. We become male as far as our gender is concerned. Therefore, I cannot keep my baby as a woman because in my operational system, a masculine aspect begins to dominate. What does this mean in practice? I will give an ancient example from which I think it is really easy to understand this concept. Cave. Well, it is not like that anymore. Maybe it has never been like that. It doesn't matter. The example will be illustrative. The family is living in a cave. You, as a woman, is there, your child and your husband or the man in your life stands next to you. A bear approaches the entrance of the cave. That is, in today's world, the predator, the abuser, the aggressive, the aggressor, and so on, who wants to force you to do something. What was the original natural order? That the man stepped out, grabbed the bludgeon, and knocked the bear down. Or the abuser, aggressor. Please interpret this by analogy and reflect it to your life. I just gave this example for the sake of simplicity. And what do you do at this point? You grab your child and take a step back. You take him or her to the nest. You protect, defend, hug him or her. But let's imagine that the man cannot solve this issue. Then what's the next response reaction? That you, as a woman, put your child to a safe place and you yourself go out to knock the bear down. This is the ancient factor encoded in us. This is what I told you before, diverts you from a feminine side to a masculine behavior. What does this mean in today's practice and regarding cortical functions biologically? This means that Mother Nature thinks that you as a woman couldn't handle the situation with an emotionally intelligent response that would have been expected from the aspect of your own life. Well, then I will switch you to a masculine way of operation so that you can solve the issue. This is nature's intelligent response. However, this also means that of course you understand this now. On a masculine operation side, you cannot be present at such feminine capacity as a mother, prospective mother, because you need to operate something else, need to defend and protect your property boundary. So, the conclusion and the lesson from the entire story regarding genital possession zone conflicts, the important thing is to be able to find exit from these emotional conflicts and drama situations. In case you recognized anything that I have been talking about and shared information about to be present in your life, I hope you will be able to stop at this point and find an appropriate solution about how to handle these situations from now on. In this way, you will have every opportunity to conceive in a completely natural way and method from this aspect. We are taking the approach of biologism. I portrayed to you that the first point was the effectiveness of the endometrium, then the fallopian tube, the hypophysis, the ovary, and the genital possession zones. The sixth point of conception obstruction from the biological approach is the disparate pH value. This is also called matching frustration conflict. I'm talking about matching. A few minutes ago, I was talking about togetherness conflict, which takes an approach from the aspect of togetherness, while the disparate pH value is connected to matching. The pH of the endometrium, vagina, and semen can differ in the aspect of pH value. The emotional experiences that belong here are everything that, even on a spiritual level, evolve in the man or in you as a woman. Thoughts like, my partner is not good enough at something. This may be a tiny thing, like not cooking soup well, or what will happen when we become parents. The management of the household has already been pounding. What will happen in the future? Raises the man the question. Otherwise, he is completely satisfied, or at least he reflects that, this kind of satisfaction, that in which you as a woman was able to settle in and start a childbearing program. At the same time, in the background, in the deep emotions and psychic conflicts from the side of the man, questions arise. What will happen if? How will we solve this? Will my wife be able to stand strong as a woman in these situations as well? Will she become a mother that? When thoughts like these are formulated, even if only in his mind, maybe he doesn't share this with you. It's really important to talk about these. The other side is, when these thoughts or something like these are formulated in you, will he be able to become a father in this aspect? Will he be able to give up certain things? For example, so far I have experienced some aggressive statements from him. Will he project this on my children as well? This is usually a typical practical sequence of events. These questions usually come up from the deep consciousness. Most women don't have the courage to say these out loud or communicate this because they are more afraid of the consequences. Maybe a loss conflict, I can lose my partner, thus I hold these thoughts back. But it's important to talk about these thoughts. So, everything that, even on a thought level, formulates in you or in your male partner, the prospective father or mother, or when something is not completely good in the other sex, is capable of initiating a fluctuation in pH levels in that exact moment. You can rightly say that you have already been through a protocol that checked this aspect, and oh well, everything is fine with the pH levels. I totally accept this response from you. I just want to point out that it was also a static image. And at that moment, when you make love with your partner on a deep level of consciousness, so you not necessarily come up with that thought while making love, of course, but in general, this thought operates on a deeper level of consciousness. It is unrolled, emotionally, yet unresolved. You haven't given the right answer to this issue, so at that moment, it's able to influence the pH of the semen, the vagina, or the endometrium. It only takes a moment. It's a momentary story. When one of you has a feeling of insecurity, uncertainty, or making the other individual insecure, the lack of individual self-confidence also belongs here, even regardless of living space, time, and location. All these programs have an impact on that. When you disagree with something, or your partner disagrees with something regarding your personality, or you regarding his personality, these factors also belong to this category. In his life, in his decisions. So when, for example, you have a hard time accepting, or something is not accepted in you, or you do not accept something, personal aspect, feature, characteristics in your partner, they do not accept me the way I am, or they do not accept you the way through the method you want to be accepted. This includes, again, the lack of caring, the less loving stages, etc. Ask yourself the question, is it worth it? What do I need to change in myself? What are these things or areas in order to allow our relationship to radiate a sense of satisfaction from both of us towards both our life and our childbearing project, conception, towards our maternal and fraternal quality? These are the important questions. And if you can answer these, you have already taken a huge step forward. And when this becomes emotional drama-free, then the obstruction of conception has been removed from you from this biological aspect. The seventh point of conception obstruction from a biological approach is HPV. This is a contingency. I would put this entire story regarding HPV in parentheses. In terms of function, we are talking about the opening of the uterus. The passage of sperm cells is the goal. So the emotional conflict behind this, we notice from the findings of new medicine and scientific evidence, is a separation, segregation conflict. It originates from a sexual frustration or rejection. This might be through your partner, living space, or significant other. Moreover, lost situations within your nest also belong to this category. This can be, for example, a marriage, concurrence, common offspring conflict, the lack of contact with the other sex, or even its undesirability, either missing it or a lot, for example, making love, or when in that way, there, at that moment, it is not desirable. It is undesirable for whatever reason. All of these examples belong to this group. For example, my practical experience shows that often this involves situations like I was kicked out, he left me, or I need to or I want to change, I should leave him but I can't, I'm unable to do so. Or else you realize that you must change some things in your relationship in order to make it a relationship full of good experiences, harmonic connections. But you cannot or do not want to change anything. These also belong here. We cannot be together the way I want us to be, or it is not allowed. These programs can also initiate. This is an epithelial lesion, what I'm talking about. What you should examine in the life of your generational ascendants are the imprints of violence and harassment. As I mentioned before, this might be a generational imprint within the family, but it can also occur in your own life. My practical knowledge indicates that it is usually an influential factor or story from the aspects of the ascendants which remain the secret or completely unresolved. The anxiety, fear from the virus, human papillomavirus HPV itself, can also lead to an epithelial cell lesion. As long as the conflicts last, we are talking about conflict activity. The epithelial cell layer, squamous tissue becomes ulcerated, it wastes away, which might lead to a hormone level change. This might be the absence of menstrual bleeding, absence of ovulation, frigidity, and obstruction of conception. When the conflict is solved and you enter the stage of solution, healing, regeneration, meaning that the conflict has been resolved, then your body, the computer, which is a perfectly programmed unit that controls your entire biological body, automatically initiates the recovery processes, which involves swelling and epithelial cell regeneration, enrichment. This inflammation is produced by viruses and cell proliferation by the body. HPV, the papillomavirus, helps this process since it is in symbiosis with your body. This is a protein assembly, a virus, which I want you to know that only there, and only for the given period is able to operate while the brain, the biological computer, allows it. Only there and only for that long. This is how it works in nature, Mother Nature. Hypersensitivity, itching or pain can occur in some cases. In epileptocrisis, which is the middle point, the peak of the healing stage, this can be accompanied by bleeding, but not necessarily. When the menstrual bleeding returns, the tissue regenerates and menstruation comes back, then the epithelial tissue recovers completely as well. HPV is not necessarily an obstacle of conception. Furthermore, you are able to conceive as a healthy mother and carry out a healthy child. This is why I portrayed that this seventh point is a bit parenthetic. It might have consequences regarding the obstruction program, but not necessarily. Finally, the eighth obstruction point, according to the new medical approach that you should pay attention to and to its emotional background to help your conception proceed smoothly, is every stress situation. We do not accidentally say that pregnant or prospective pregnant women should be protected from even the wind and everything else, but especially from stress situations. Why do I say this? Because your body considers a stress situation an attack from the environment. This attack activates the adrenal glands, and adrenaline is produced, which leads to a change in homeostasis. At this point, the balance of the system is disturbed, and thus I would like to draw your attention to this factor. Therefore, you should aim to live a stress-free life, which is rich in emotional balance and health. Both physically and mentally in your heart, soul and spirit, and prepare in such an environment for the period of conception as well. Thus far, from a biological aspect, we have considered the programs, their biological consequences and drama situations that you should avoid to ensure that the arrival of your baby, your conception, will happen smoothly through 8 points.
Érdemes elkerülnöd ahhoz, hogy a te kisbabád érkezése, a fogantatásod gördülékenyen haladjon.
I also promised you that during this presentation I will talk about conception obstruction from a psychogenetic and psychic approach as well. Why do I think that this is important to share with you? Why is examining the psychogenetic background important in these aspects? Fundamentally, psychogenetics is about the here and now. Starting from the present situation, it examines the traumas, crises, conflicts, drama situations that influence your attitude to life, and whether there has been a repetition point of these emotional experiences. On top of this, what was the period you spent in the womb like, the circumstances of your conception, and in the period before that? What happened between your familiar genealogical ancestors? What the information imprints that emotionally keep you under their influence, and the consequences of this in your present, here and now, a change, a disease, a biological distinct program. The law of predestination and the law of compulsory repetition serve as the basis for psychogenetics. What does this mean? The law of predestination is a behavior pattern, a behavior series, for example, something that the family always maintains that appears constantly or reoccurringly in the family. These are false beliefs, belief systems, programs, fears, the belief system of the inherited genetics. Here and now, I want you to know that inherited genetics do not exist. There are inherited informational imprints. I will soon talk about what genetics actually means, considering wave genetics. To provide help for you with this, to be able to better understand and become conscious about what the natural mechanism of a conception program is. So, when I illustrated and portrayed the biological program series, I brought up all of these emotional family horizon of event series, conflicts that need to be discovered and resolved, because this is exactly why they can predestinate you, all of us, in our lives. And it keeps you in a compulsion to repeat it when, on a generation branch, a secret, a mystery, an arcanum, things that have been broomed under the carpet, or a series of behavior resulting from a false belief system reappear again and again. These make you believe that this is normal in your family. Oh, just leave it alone, you cannot do anything about that. This is due to genetics. Stop. You don't have to put up with anything. Live with the right to doubt and use your knowledge. So, when programs that you have believed and the family live by and the pattern is constantly present are running on a generation branch, can lead to physical diseases or even physical collapse. This is why I believe that it's really important to examine these program series in light of psychogenetics as well. The law of repetition, compulsory repetition, is a state that provokes the environment. You provoke your own environment with it. Repetition provokes the environment to create a mental state or state of mind in which the trauma, crisis, conflict is able to revive and repeat its own tensions. I'm talking about tension differences here. A change biologically can only happen when there is a tension difference. What is this about? Your soul body, your emotional world, your spirituality knows exactly at every moment what the truth is. And with this, you go against something, maybe out of reason or through your environment from being influenced. So, on a physical level, from the brain, you go against something. It suggests that you shouldn't do something, but you do that thing anyway just because. This creates tension difference. To what factor the computer, the brain physically responds with the disconnection of a synapse connection. Consequently, certain zones in the brain become able to form edemas through which this can be transcribed to the level of the organs, your physical body, keep it under influence and initiate a lesion as a consequence. So I have been talking about the law of repetition. What factors can cause you to get involved in such situation? I will give you a practical example. For example, there is a mother who is 11 weeks pregnant when she experiences a violent sexual comment, not a physical aggression, just a strong sexual comment. Her child is 11 years old when she experiences the first sexual assault. This didn't involve a sexual act either, but she experienced a verbal assault, which was terrifying for her. It scared her. Then later, when she was 21 years old, repeating this arithmetical pattern, psychogenetics has proved the relationship of these mathematical series. At 22 years old, she initiates a relationship in which her partner is verbally abusive, aggressive, violent. She experiences violence. She herself chooses this partner. She has already left behind that sexual aggression, but the aggression as a fact itself accompanies this stage of her life. This trauma remained unprocessed, and later its consequence was that she experienced a miscarriage at the 11th week of her pregnancy. I brought this example up to show you a momentary practical example about the importance of being able to examine and discover a trauma on the family tree and being able to exit this circle. From then on, you can avoid these programs and physical difficulties in your life. I think this is a great opportunity. Let's look at the programs that belong to conception obstruction from the approach of psychology, psychogenetics. I have collected and would like to share with you those that I have experienced the most in my practical field. The first such program is when, on a branch of the family tree, the woman didn't desire her husband, she just let things happen. This may have occurred quite frequently in the lives of our grandmothers, therefore this is worth to be examined. But in fact, she was disgusted of sexual acts anyway. These examples belong here. Or typically, giving birth is painful, it's a torture, etc. Stop. Decide what aspects you would like to represent, what is important for you, and know that anything can be rewritten. Even if you were growing up with a mother emphasizing these, the negative beliefs from the programs, you can exit, you can escape these hamster wheels. You are able to become conscious about it, and you can operate this in your everyday life. So, exciting these programs, the negative belief systems, is really important. The unwanted child in the family, when a program was running in the family, of course we were planning to have you and everything was fine when you were born. Are you sure? It is worth to stop at this point. This story screams really loudly. Unwanted child, unwanted conception programs. It was an accident. We were looking at these questions differently. These programs belong here. The gametes memorize these, and they may not want to reproduce afterwards. There is a condition system fixed in the cell memory. Social misconceptions, compliance constraints, escape programs, these are also recorded in the germ cell memory. Abortions, miscarriage programs, in the endometrium and the smooth muscle, there is the imprint of the biological trauma. I've already mentioned the cell memory briefly, so I will elaborate on this for a little bit for you to achieve a deeper understanding. The cell memory preserves these events in the deep consciousness as information imprints, and the biochemical processes, imprints that were left behind in the next pregnancy, can harm the fetus, not necessarily, but they are able to do so. Or else, they can potentially cause the lack of certain biochemical substances, which is an informational stimulus. We are talking about stimulation. The magnitude of the attack in case of an abortion and the length of the attack determines in the dermic era, when the dermal plates are formed in the fetus, the change in the vibration number of the germ plates, in other words, the creation of a phantom character. This means that the offspring is subjected to an attack dependency, which can significantly influence the strength of the ego, and then he or she makes a decision whether he or she wants to remain in this environment or not. he or she gives an SOS sign to the mother from the womb, to you as a prospective mother, an experience that your grandmother left unprocessed, or your mother, an abortion or miscarriage program. We are able to record the emotional trauma of this experience in ourselves on the cell memory level in the uterus. And when the same week comes, for example, the 11th week for you as well, then this SOS signal is released on the cell level, cell information level, for your own body as an informational stimulus. Releasing this SOS signal is memorized by your body, and during pregnancy, it creates an environment such that at the time or that emotional drama you will be able to experience again, which was not provided with an appropriate answer the last time it occurred. There was no adequate response to it. Why does Mother Nature do this with us? Because this is the path of progress, giving emotionally intelligent responses. And we record everything at the level of the cell memory, at the level of the universal information, to evolve, to get out of these emotional drama circles. Also, I want you to know regarding this question that the enzymes that regulate metabolism are produced in this case. But these enzymes might not support the implantation in the endometrium. These also belong here. On top of this, from a psychogenetics approach, to summarize, all circumstances that involve biological conception obstruction in your life and are already in a repetition compulsion, or among family members, or at the level of your ancestors, and so far, there has not been an emotionally intelligent answer given, appropriate response, proper processing. So, family secrets, sweeping things under the carpet, concealing things, lack of taking responsibility, all of these belong to this category. In these cases, considering psychogenetics, we are able to keep ourselves in compulsion to replay. Its consequence, aftermath, is that we create an environment for ourselves in which we are able to experience a life situation that our ancestors experienced with an emotionally similar background as a biological conflict, and consequently, this can lead to a miscarriage program or obstruction. Why do I explain all of these? To provide you with knowledge, information that's worth to examine and work on these things. It's worth talking about the family with whoever you have a relationship with. What happened in the family? How did these things happen? What did you experience? Or else, based on your own knowledge, you examine what emotional shock might be in the background of that factor and how you, here and now, would live your life. Or, have you had similar experiences in your life? Have there been any similar examples in your life so far? There have been examples of experiencing similar emotions over and over, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, even today. Am I also running this hamster wheel? Maybe yes, you are. And be happy at this point. But I put my two hands together because you have found your opportunity to exit this circle. See, recognize, make a decision, decide out of your own free will, and then live with the opportunity of conditioning, the psychic conditioning. Condition yourself to your best decision-making mechanisms and to the responses that are appropriate for you based on your heart and soul. And then at this point, you can get out of all these circles and avoid your life being hindered. And your baby can arrive in perfect emotional and health balance. I've also promised at the beginning of the presentation that I will describe the connections of wave genetics as well. I would like to introduce this concept at the end of the presentation so that you'll have a more complex, comprehensive knowledge of obstruction programs in both aspects of new medicine and the aspects of psychogenetics, and to explain how wave genetics, quantum genetics recognize and what it means in practice to conceive, what the genetic program series is. So, how is wave genetics related to conception obstruction? Wave genetics has recognized the natural law that there is a genetic code. Each genetic code is part of the construction plan of the entire living environment. This means that all of our organ systems develop from this. In our DNA molecules, there is a genetic code wording which is capable of carrying all the required information, and it does so as well. It's wave structured because I mentioned that it's wave-like. It is wave structured because it emits both light and sound. Therefore, our genetic structure functions as a wave function. The theory of these wave functions is in fact connected to the name of Pyotr Garyaev, and we must be thankful for his discovery, which certified the natural law of genes. Each gene is a substance or matter and a field simultaneously. It is a wave. Your chromosomes, as well as the chromosomes of your baby, consist of genes. The field shape of these genes is what governs the overall development of your body, so it's not the matter that controls it, but the field shape of your genes, the wave part, the wave information part. It's not the matter, but the information what controls, influences, drives the entire system. In the mother, in you, in the egg of the future mother, the wave images of the future organism, baby, organs of your baby are formed, and only after that becomes the developing fetus embodied layer by layer. So it's always the wave that comes first, the information. And thus, it's really important that you, among your ancestral family members, also know what information background is present. So, first the information takes up space, and then it is filled with the material, layer by layer, and the fetus begins to develop. The inherited DNA molecules are not exclusively materialistic. They are not exclusively materialistic in nature, but they are also sources of electromagnetic and sound fields. Therefore, it's not the matter that affects your baby, but the recorded light and sound, the aspects that you represent, the pattern you display, your waves, the waves of your environment. The DNA molecules of your fetus excite a field of information which contains the entire plan of his or her body's physical, mental, and emotional structure, the whole plan, blueprint. I want you to know that about 2%, yes, 2% of the gene pool of your fetus is embodied in material form. All the rest, it sounds unbelievable, 98% is a hologram, not material. In total, what you see, feel is 2%. 98% is a hologram. This hologram contains, in compressed form, all the written factors, the blueprints and information of your child's body. How are biology, new medicine, psychogenetics, and wave genetics related? They are related since the connection that the formation of the physical body is based on the information carried by the mother, primarily, the father secondarily, and lastly, the environment has been proven based on the information that the fetus picks up and it constantly affects him or her. So, the belief system of the mother and the environment, the thought pattern, the emotional world, the mental functioning, the biological computer of the fetus initiates the programs necessary for the production of proteins and other substances. First, the light and sound image of the structure of all the tiny particles of the fetal body is formed, and then, secondarily, it is filled with matter, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, etc., material particles. In practice, this means that if the prospective mother experiences a great fear and anxiety, then the fetus, in accordance with this maternal feeling, will program itself accordingly. For example, if the mother or the father feels hindered or has a program of self-esteem breakdown or insecurity, then in the basic emotional coding of the fetus, it appears as the main program of life. As a consequence, he or she scrolls, this is what I've been talking about earlier regarding psychogenetics, he or she scrolls this all his life until he or she becomes aware of this program line and can get out of the hamster wheel of repetition. But until then, he's scrolling this. Additionally, the fetus is able to decide whether he or she would like to tolerate the current circumstances or not. He or she can create an information structure in which he or she displays a biological lesion and exit the shape of the physical body. Or else, he or she stays in this, and in this case, he or she puts on a character mask because in order to survive, he or she has to adapt to the problems, traumas, programs of the mother and father. So, he or she develops a so-called character mask. He or she develops a character instead of following his or her own pure life path. Why is it advantageous that you know this? Why is this information useful? I believe that it is useful because this way you know how to, and you are able to change these factors. You are able to rethink yourself, to override your previous beliefs, your way of thinking with content that actually elevates your heart, soul, and spirituality. The high state of your human quality that you can and will be proud of and fills you with satisfaction. And most importantly, besides satisfaction, keeps you in your own state of balance, in which you feel good and you have every opportunity to live a loving life. Moreover, being able to convey this loving quality of life to yourself, your family, and your environment as well, this is reflected back to you. This is an essential point of your life. In this operation, you're able to joyfully and lovingly exist in the balance of your health. These are the reasons why I think this is really important. And this is the only right attitude, giving an emotionally appropriate response with which you can get off the hamster wheel. So, to give emotionally intelligent responses, this is the solution. This gives you energy for action. This is the point where you can get off the hamster wheel of emotional influence, conflicts, illnesses, drama, trauma, and crisis situations, the point of disembarkation. Everything else inhibits the energy of action, but you maximally need this energy of action because it's necessary for you to be able to achieve and embody your own intentions, wills, and decisions, and actually do so. And I am sure that you have all the skills, opportunities, and knowledge to do so, to override your erroneous patterns and to tame and inactivate conflict situations and traumas. You're able to re-examine yourself as well as recreate and redefine your own attitude. You can also recreate your decision-making mechanisms appropriately in a quality that is emotionally right for you, and with an attitude that is filled with the state of love towards yourself and your environment as well. Then, in this state, conceiving, giving birth, and sailing on the joyful sea of existence with your own family to the best of your knowledge and quality. I wish you good sailing for this. Always have a good weather and wind, and I would like to reinforce the idea so that you know that every moment when you are in your own spirituality, in your own way of thinking, in the balance of your spiritual, emotional self, the balance of your heart, and you act accordingly, you make decisions accordingly, and you focus your acting energies on this factor. And these three things fall in the same straight line, then you receive all the support you need. This is a universal law, the law of the multiverse, so that this idea of yours is immediately created. Therefore, you gain the energy of creation to allow you to live the rest of your life in your goddess quality, together with you, yourself, and your family, in love, joy, full existence. I wish you all the best for this and a great rest of your day.